Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So for those of you who are new here, my name is Melissa. I am 12 weeks, 5 days pregnant today with my first pregnancy. And today I just wanted to kind of give like a first trimester like recap or overview of what it's been like for me. So I know that I'm not quite out of the first trimester yet, but I am so close. Like I said, I'm 12 weeks and 5 days and a lot has gone on. So this is going to be quite a long video, so sorry in advance. But I just want to go over everything with you guys and share my experience and the ups and downs and everything that I've gone through. So I have my notes on my phone, so if I keep looking down, that's why. But I'm first going to start out with finding out that I was pregnant. So if you watched my last video with Rob, that for our announcement video, we went over a little bit of how I found out I was pregnant, what tests I took. I'll have that linked in the description, but I'll also give kind of a more detailed thing because this is more of a pregnancy update. I'll go more into detail with like feminine stuff. So guys, if you're watching, sorry, but you are watching a pregnancy video. So I found out I was pregnant on January 3rd. To be 100% honest with you, as I said in the first video, we weren't planning on getting pregnant. So I was really nervous because around the holidays, we were drinking. We, on Christmas Day, one of our best friends got engaged. And so there was like a surprise engagement party, so we were drinking then. And then we went over to that same couple's house on New Year's Eve, and we were drinking then as well. So I was really nervous when I first found out I was pregnant. But then I thought of the people who don't know that they're pregnant for a really long time, and that made me feel a little bit better. And then of course, with after my first few ultrasounds, I saw that baby's doing really well and that it's growing on track and everything, and so it really put my mind at ease. But if you were out there and you were like, oh my gosh, I was drinking or I was smoking or whatever it may be, that you weren't changing your lifestyle at first, you're not alone. I was panicking a little bit, but I feel better now and hopefully everything's okay, because it was in just the very first few weeks. I found out I was pregnant at 3 weeks and 4 days. So it was in the really, really early stages of the pregnancy. Going back to how I found out I was pregnant. Found out I was pregnant on January 3rd. Like I said in the previous videos, I was constantly taking tests. So I'll pull up my period app. Because I have PCOS, my periods were always very irregular. And I will show you how irregular they were. So I'll go back to like July 2019. So let's see if it'll focus. So there's July. So everything that's underlined in red are when I was on my period. So it's not consistent. There was like end of June, July, then August, didn't get it at all. September, got it kind of towards the end, then got it at the very end again for just a few days. Then November, then December, and then that was my last period. So because my period was all over the place and sometimes I would get it, sometimes I wouldn't, a lot of times I would get it multiple times a month, it was so hard to track, so all over the place, and I would constantly take tests. I would constantly take tests to ease my mind because I couldn't I felt like I couldn't rely on my body. I couldn't trust my body to know what it was doing and to kind of go through the cycles on its own. So I didn't know what to expect. And we were using birth control, we were using all of that, but I still always panic. I'm an overthinker, I'm a planner, and I like to try to know what's going on with my body as much as possible. That's why I track my periods. That's why I constantly test. And I'm glad that I did, because if not, I wouldn't have found out so early. So going back to January 3rd, when I first found out, I actually took one on New Year's Eve after that night of drinking. I was like, oh, I hope that I'm not pregnant after I was just drinking that much. And I took one and it came back negative. So I was like, okay, good, I'm fine. So then January 2nd, that night, it was a Thursday night. It was actually the day that my best friend announced that she was pregnant. And so I started getting, I was like really trying to be in tune with my body. And like I said, it didn't always work. But I started getting weird cramps, and it felt like a pulling down like in my sides. And I was like, this like feels like a different cramp. Like it kind of felt like stretching a little bit, but I was like, there's no way, one, that I'm pregnant, and two, that I would be experiencing cramps, because I didn't know that that was a symptom. So I was like, I'm sure I'm just going to start my period tomorrow morning. But being crazy like I am, I always take tests. I had gotten like a 50 pack of these HCG like dipsticks from Amazon. It's like 11 bucks or something, and I got that with like little cups. And so that's another reason why I was fine with taking tests all the time, is because it was these cheap little tests and I have a ton of them. So I peed in the cup and I immediately threw away the pee in the toilet. Again, probably TMI, but whatever, because that's what I did every time, because it would always come back negative. And so I just had it there on the counter and was just getting ready for work, and I looked down and it was the faintest line. I actually have a picture. I try to show the actual test in my last video, but you still couldn't really tell. And you still probably can't even tell in this picture. But it was the most faint line. So obviously that's the control line, and then that is the positive line. And when I saw that positive come up, I was like, holy shit, like, I'm pregnant. And my heart immediately dropped, and I started panicking, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to think. I'm scared. I wasn't expecting this. Oh my gosh. So I immediately grabbed the test, and I went in to where Robert was laying, and he was like half asleep, and I was like, Robert, and I immediately started bawling, and he like shot up, and I was like, and he was like, what? And I was like, I'm pregnant, and I started crying even more. And he was like, what? And I was like, I'm pregnant. It came back positive. And I showed him the test, and he at first was like, but I can barely see that. And I was like, a faint line is a positive. Like, a positive is a positive. It's very rare to get like a false positive. And so he was just didn't believe it, and I didn't believe it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to think. I don't know what to feel. I'm so scared. And again, he asked, like, are these happy tears or are these bad tears? And I was like, I don't know. I'm scared. I don't know what to think. We weren't planning this. What are we gonna do? So we started going through not all the options, but we were starting to talk about like our age and how we can make it work. We have good jobs. We have the means to make it work. It was just earlier than we expected. So that's when I was like, I still don't really believe it. I have this digital test in one of my drawers, and I barely have to pee, but I might be able to get some out, so let me see. So I was barely able to get anything out. And so I was like, okay, now it's definitely going to come back negative or inconclusive because I could barely get anything out, but it immediately came back positive. So after it started like sinking in, we both went to work. I just kept on messaging him throughout the day, just being like, I still don't believe it. I still can't believe I'm pregnant. I immediately called my insurance and my doctor and all that stuff and got a ultrasound scheduled. So my first appointment was scheduled for, I believe it was going to be February 4th, which I'll get into this video of why it did not end up being February 4th. But so that was January 3rd. January 4th, after it sunk in a little bit, we decided to tell our family. So, well, some family. So first we called my mom. I think she was the first one we called. No, we first called his dad. And he was excited. He was at work, so he couldn't really talk, but he was excited and was just like, we explained how we were panicking at first, but then he was like, no, you guys got this. Then we called my mom. So I don't know if like I'm the only one who does this, but have you ever had that feeling like where you just need to talk to your mom and like you just have so many feelings going on and you don't know what to think, and so you just need your mom. Like you need your mom. And as soon as you hear her voice, you just break down crying. That's exactly what happened. I called her and she answered, and I felt bad because she was with her boyfriend and they were like at a resort. And I immediately just started bawling and was like, I'm pregnant. And she was so excited and was like, you are? Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And because she also knows what I've been going through with PCOS. And when I first got diagnosed, I remember I got diagnosed on a Thursday, and that Friday I drove up to her place because I was supposed to go there that weekend anyway. And we just spent the weekend like crying and like her promising me that I'm going to be a mom someday after I was like doubting that I would ever get pregnant. So it was just really emotional finding out I was pregnant because you're scared, but also at the same time it's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be a mom. So that's what it was like when I was talking to her that Saturday. And she was just so excited and she was like, why are you crying? And I was like, I don't know, I'm just scared, like I don't know what to feel. And she's like, you guys got this, you will figure it out. So then we called my sister and I FaceTimed her, and when she answered, I was just holding up the digital pregnancy test that said pregnant, and she's like, oh my gosh. And she immediately told my nieces, and they were just running up and down the halls like screaming and so excited. And it was just really exciting, and she was excited for us as well, but just had a lot of questions, and like as everyone was. So it was just really exciting. So then we called my dad. At first you could tell he was like processing it. He was like, is this a good or a bad thing? And we were like, we'll get it figured out. And he was immediately just wondering about health insurance and all that stuff, which we already had figured out. And then he was like, okay, it's gonna be good. And then after that, since then, he's just been like calling me and just being like, how are you feeling? And like, it's just so excited now. So we called my Nana, and she was really, really excited. We didn't tell his mom right away. I wanted Rob to take the lead on telling who he wanted in his family. And so I don't think we told anyone else that weekend. We told our best friends, and they were really excited. But other than that, like, I think just over the next few weeks is when he started telling his family, because I think it also needed to sink in for him, which is 100% fine. I wasn't trying to pressure him with that because it's his family. Like, even though it's our pregnancy, we're going through this together, he needs to go at his own pace and tell who he wants at his own pace. All right, so symptoms. So let me go to my symptoms. So like I said, I found out at 3 weeks, 4 days. So around that, so between that time and I guess like all through 4 weeks, my symptoms were the pinches and like light cramping, like I said, which I found out later was completely normal to have like period like cramps. And next one was really sore boobs. It was to the point where I would roll over in bed and like just one boob going from one side to the other. I know, again, TMI. It was like so painful. It was really painful. I was super, super thirsty. Like, I felt like every time I was chugging water, a few minutes later, I felt the need to chug water again. I was so thirsty. And then my last thing was I was just really tired. I wasn't as tired as I get later, but I was really tired. My starting weight was 123.4. From 4 weeks to 5 weeks, I don't know how I tracked this, but from 4 weeks to 5 weeks, it was exactly the same as 3 to 4 weeks, except for my sore boobs got worse. That's when I really started to get more bloated, and I think it's mainly from the water intake, and you just get bloated in general when you're pregnant. So that's when the bloating really started to pick up. That's when I started to get a little bit nauseous when I wasn't constantly snacking. I was making an effort to always try to snack, and I noticed that when I would slow down on snacking or forget to pack a snack or get busy at work and just have it slip my mind, that's when I started to get nauseous. I didn't want huge meals. I just wanted to like pick at stuff, and I was getting full quicker. I think that also had to deal with the bloating, because I noticed that like my bloating, yeah, I was down low, but it like I felt like it was like up higher too. Like I felt full, and I didn't like that. That's when I started to be tired, but I couldn't sleep at night. I felt like the pregnancy insomnia was starting to kick in. I would wake up, I was having a little bit of a hard time falling to sleep, but another reason I think that was because before I was pregnant, I would take melatonin every single night. And so when I found out I was pregnant, I cut it out completely. So I think that my body wasn't used to that. So it took me a little bit to fall asleep. But once I got that like out of my system and my body started to get used to not taking it, I was able to fall asleep immediately, but I would just toss and turn throughout the night, and I would almost always wake up at like 3 in the morning and just be up. Like I could not fall back asleep, but I would finally fall back asleep after probably about an hour. Another weird symptom is my eye kept twitching. So this eye, it would constantly twitch. Like my eyelid would twitch all the time, all day. And I looked that up, and they were saying that it was the increased hormones, I think it was, and the increased blood flow. And that's a normal pregnancy symptom, which I thought was really weird. And then my last symptom for week 4 was I started dry heaving on the final day of week 4. So that wasn't fun. So from 5 to 6 weeks, my weight increased from 123.4 to 123.6. So a big jump there. Same as before. I was apparently very nauseous one day that week. This is when I started getting this really weird pain, and I'm being told that it's round ligament pain, but basically it mainly happens at night, but like on this, sorry, so like here's my belly right here, so here's my belly button right here. If I would roll over in the middle of the night, I would get like a Charlie horse pain, excruciating right there. And I think it's like, I don't even know what it is. I think it's just from the stretching, but I would get that pain every time I would roll over, and I would like curl into a ball. It was so painful. And I also get it when I sneeze or cough. It's like those muscles really tighten up, and I always get it. I mainly got it a lot that week. I think in the next few weeks, but it hasn't been happening lately. Okay, this is when it's weird. So my period app that was tracking my period, it was actually saying that I was 6 weeks around that time. And really, I found out later, I was really only about 5 weeks. My period app was tracking me 5 days later than I actually was in the pregnancy. So I went on a Monday night, started getting really bad cramps. I knew that the period cramps at this point were normal, but that Monday night it was getting pretty painful, and it was stretching around to my back, which made me nervous. So I was like texting my mom and my sister, and they both were saying the same thing of, as long as you're not spotting, then it's fine. So I ignored it and everything was fine. That next night, that Tuesday night, I started to get really bad cramps again. And I was like, you know what, let me just like walk around and see if that helps. And I ended up on all fours because it was so painful. So that really, really scared me. Of course, with me being the overthinker, I was immediately thinking this pregnancy is either ectopic or I'm miscarrying. So that Wednesday, I called my doctor, and they said that they wanted to bring me in for an emergency ultrasound. They said they wanted me to come in that day, that Wednesday, and I couldn't. I was in the middle of work, so I haven't updated on what I'm currently doing, but I'm currently nannying. I'm doing a nanny share, so I am working for 2 families. So if I need to leave in the middle of the day, or if I need to take off, I have to then coordinate it with 2 families, not just one, or 2 families have to come home or figure something out. So it's a lot harder for me to take off, and it's a lot harder for me to just go in the middle of the day. So, and at that point they didn't know I was pregnant, so I couldn't just call them and be like, hey, so I'm pregnant and I think I might be miscarrying and my doctor wants me to come in for an emergency ultrasound. Can you come home? So I was like, I can't leave work. Is it okay if I go tomorrow? And they said, well, we're all booked for tomorrow, but call your insurance and see what places your insurance covers for ultrasounds, and we'll send the orders over to them. So I was like, okay. So I called around. The first one that I called, they only had an appointment for Friday morning. So I called my doctor back and I said, I made an appointment for Friday morning. Is that too late? And they were like, yeah, we want you to get in sooner. So I called back around to other places and got an ultrasound for that next Thursday morning. And I knew that that was another pregnancy symptom, is I was starting to become really emotional. But of course this was like an emotional thing, but my hormones were really messing with my emotions. And it was one of those things where you know that you're being emotional, you know that you're being irrational, but it's kind of like an out-of-body experience. Like, I couldn't help it. I was like, I know that I need to get my stuff together, but I can't. Like, I'm really upset. So that night I got home and I was like really emotional, and I had been crying during that day, and I was like obviously texting Rob throughout the day, and so he knew that I was really upset. And when I got home, he said as a joke something like, "Hi, cryy McCryerson," or something like that. And I was like, "Don't call me that." And he couldn't hear me, and he's like, "What?" And I was like, "Don't call me that." And I just started bawling, and he just held me while I cried, and he was like, "I was just kidding, I'm so sorry." And I was like, "I'm just so scared. I don't know what this ultrasound's gonna show me. Like, what if we go there and it's just, there's nothing, there's no baby? What if it's an ectopic pregnancy? Like, I'm so scared." So he was like, "Nope, everything's gonna be fine." The night that we found out we were pregnant, we went and got sparkling cider, and we had done like a cheers, and before we cheers, he said to a healthy, successful pregnancy. So he reminded me of that and was like, "We cheers to this pregnancy, like everything's gonna be fine." So the next morning we went into the ultrasound. Thankfully Rob was able to go with me. It was actually worked out perfect because it was actually in his work building. It was just on another level, so he was able to go into work, leave work during the ultrasound, and then go back to work. So we got into the ultrasound, and they immediately were asking how far along I was. I was basing it off of my period app, and that was, I later found out, wrong. So at that point I thought that I was 6 weeks 3 days, I believe. So when I was in there, she was doing the measurements, and I figured since it's not at my doctor's appointment that they can't tell me anything. But during it, I actually asked her, I was like, "I'm assuming you can't tell me anything?" And she was like, "No." She was like, "No, I can." She was like, "So what I'm seeing is the gestational sac, which is measuring about 5 weeks 5 days." She was like, "But that actually kind of lines up with your last missed period." So that made me feel a little bit better. And she was like, "And I see the yolk sac, but I do not see a fetal pole. But usually you don't see that until about 6 weeks." So it made me feel better, but I was like, we're only 2 days away from 6 weeks. Like, is it really going to show up and change that much in 2 days? But I left there feeling better, and she just took measurements and sent it to my doctor. So the next day I got a message from my doctor, and she actually sent it that night, that Thursday night, and I actually might have it. "Melissa, your ultrasound shows a gestational sac in the uterus approximately 5 weeks 5 days with yolk sac present. A fetal pole is not seen. However, we do not usually see a fetal pole until 6 weeks gestational age. While the ultrasound doesn't tell us if you have a viable pregnancy, it is consistent with what we expect to see based on your last menstrual period. If you are no longer having pain and you are not having bleeding, the best thing to do is repeat the ultrasound in 10 days to 2 weeks. I will have someone from the office give you a call tomorrow to make an earlier appointment. I'm sorry not to have given you a call, but I didn't want to call you late at night. Let us know if you have any questions." So that made me feel a lot better. They did end up calling me that Friday, and they were like, "Hey, don't know if you saw the thing, but everything looks good. Again, we don't know if it's viable yet, but we want you to come in earlier." So they ended up changing the appointment from, I think it was February 4th to January 27th was my first real appointment. After that emergency ultrasound, I started to get more sick, more emotional. That's when I started to throw up. I was only vomiting at night though, which that's still the case. Thankfully, I haven't really gotten sick during the day. I only really get it at night after, it's mainly after like a long day at work, or on weekends when I'm just kind of relaxing. So then I guess then it's all the time if it's both times. So that's when the sickness started, and then again I started to get more emotional. I started to get like, you know when you don't feel good and you really want someone by you and you're really like clingy, but at the same time you're like, don't touch me, like I don't feel good, I just feel so gross, like I just feel blah, but like don't leave my side. That's how I was constantly. Like Rob likes to play his video games and stuff, and I would just constantly be messaging him, just being like, just please come be with me, like I'm really upset. And he would come in and I would be like bawling because I missed him. I definitely feel bad for him because I've been very emotional, I've been very moody, I've just been very like snappy towards him, and poor guy. Then moving on to my first appointment. So it was actually pretty quick and easy. I did all of the like, they want you to fill out like all your family history and everything, and thankfully it was my regular OBGYN that I've been going to for years, so they had most of that, and I filled out all of the paperwork online ahead of time, so I only had a few forms to fill out when I was there. And they brought us in for the first ultrasound, and we actually got to see the heartbeat, and it was so amazing. They gave me like a routine. I asked if it was a pap smear, but she said it wasn't, but they took swabs of something, I don't know. But yeah, it was pretty quick and easy, and they just felt around on my stomach, gave me a breast exam, and did the ultrasound, and we were good to go, and it was so amazing to see. After that, my symptoms pretty much stayed the same. I was still getting sick, still super emotional, still super moody, and then at that point I was so tired. I felt like I was hit by a bus every single day. I was just exhausted all day, every day. I would come home, eat, and then just basically go to sleep. This past week, I would say, so yeah, probably this past week, it varies day by day, but my energy has been up so much compared to a few weeks ago, and like I don't feel like I need a nap every single day, and my mood has been up. Like even Rob commented on it and was like, thank goodness your mood has been up. He's like, because you were really bad there for a while. I was like, I know, I'm sorry. Like I said, it's like an out-of-body experience. Like, you know you're being irrational, you know that you're being a bitch, but you can't help it. Like, it's just something takes over you and you're just like, I'm really sorry, but I'm in a really bad mood. So my mood has been up, my energy has been up, and it's been really good. So my next appointment was February 24th. I figured after my first ultrasound, it would be the appointments where you just come in, they find the baby on the Doppler, and then you go home. But I was actually really happy but sad at the same time, because I told Rob, you don't need to come to those appointments because they're really short. And I ended up going to that appointment, and they ended up giving me an ultrasound. And I was not expecting it. They were like, yeah, the first 2 appointments you get one. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. So I was texting him saying I felt so bad. And he was really upset that he couldn't be there, but it was fine. I got to see baby moving around. We got to hear the heartbeat, or I got to hear the heartbeat, and it was really exciting. But then that was basically it for that appointment. We just quickly found the heartbeat on the ultrasound machine, and then that was it. I forgot to say that, so that appointment was at 11 weeks exactly, 9 weeks, 2 days. I got an at-home Doppler delivered, and I found the heartbeat that night. So I've been able to find it ever since. I watched lots of videos on how to differentiate all the different sounds that are going on, because you hear your heartbeat, you hear the placenta, you hear a lot. So I was able to find the baby's heartbeat, and it was so amazing to hear. And that has been such like a reassurance for me, because again, I'm an overthinker and I worry. So that's been helping me like get through the appointments. So the next appointment that I had was the NT scan, which was this past Wednesday. So that was March 4th. So for that one, it was at a completely different place. It was actually at the hospital that I'm going to be delivering at, which is in Baltimore. It took a long time, because we ended up talking to the genetic counselor who goes over every single genetic thing that goes on in your family. We went through all of that. That probably took an hour. So then at that appointment, we also found out that we could do the NIPT test, which is the blood test that will go more into detail about the genetic screening. So we just got that done, and they said we should find out the results in 3 to 6 days, which is crazy. Oh, after the genetic counselor meeting, we then went into like a detailed ultrasound where they do different measurements. And again, I didn't think they would be able to tell me the results from that right away, because it's not at my doctor's. But they brought in a doctor, and they said everything came back completely normal and that everything looked perfect. So we were really happy and relieved about that. But again, this NIPT screening will tell us a lot more in depth about that. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is food cravings. I haven't had like super strong cravings. I haven't had it to where it's like, if I don't have it now, I'm going to freak out. It's just like a really strong desire to have it, and I'm like, that sounds so good, and then I can't stop thinking about it. And that's mainly been mac and cheese and McDonald's fries. McDonald's fries I want all the time. And then I recently found out that you can actually ask for a side of Big Mac sauce, and I think they charge you like 50 cents. And so I've been dipping my fries in the Big Mac sauce, and it's been so good. So that's been my biggest craving. And then anything spicy. I've been loving spicy food, spicy chips. I put a bunch of hot sauce and stuff. Like, I've been really wanting spicy stuff. But other than that, nothing like crazy. Nothing like weird things mixed together and stuff like that. It's been pretty straightforward. So I think that's about it. I really want to start doing like bi-weekly just updates, so that way it's not 12 weeks all at once that I'm piling onto you, because this is a long video. So again, I apologize, but if you still are around at this point, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you can follow us along on this new and exciting journey. We're so excited. Again, we were so scared, but now, like, after a few days of it getting settled in, we've been so excited. Rob all the time is like rubbing my belly and kissing my belly, and it's just, I can't wait to see him be a dad. I can't wait to become a mom. I can't wait to find out the gender. We're just so excited. Really quick before I go, I'll show you a belly shot of what I'm working with. And I hope that you guys subscribe and follow along, like this video if you liked it. Comment below if you have any questions, and I'll either respond to them in the comments below, or I'll respond to it in my next little pregnancy update. So thank you guys so much for following along. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.